Japan's military history dramatically turned in the early 1900s when they revolutionized naval warfare by creating the first aircraft carrier. But everything changed when they stepped back from military power and chose peace instead. That peace lasted for many years. But now things are different. With China becoming more aggressive, Japan has strengthened its navy again. Thanks to its strong $4.9 trillion economy, they have built new high-tech aircraft carriers equipped with cutting-edge fighter jets. The message to China is clear: Japan will stand up for itself. But how do they match up against China's expanding navy? And what does this mean for the future of the Pacific? Join us as we examine Japan's new aircraft carriers and their hidden message to rival countries. Back in 1922, Japan changed how naval battles would be fought forever. They built the Hosho, the world's first real aircraft carrier. But it was not just for show, it was their testing ground. Japanese engineers used it to figure out everything about carrier operations: how planes should take off, how they should land, and how the whole ship and aircraft system could work together smoothly. The Hosho proved that aircraft carriers were the key to controlling the seas. Japan went all in, building carrier after carrier: the Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu, Shokaku, Sukaku, Taiho, and Unryu. Each new ship was bigger and better than the last, showing just how powerful Japan's navy had become. But it wouldn't last. The Unryu, their final carrier, sank in 1944 during World War II, and just a year later, atomic bombs hit Japan, changing everything. After the atomic bombs hit Hiroshima and Nagasaki, World War II, history's deadliest conflict, came to an end. Japan made a huge change. It would be a peaceful nation. No offensive weapons were allowed. That meant no long-range missiles, no nukes, and no aircraft carriers. They could only have weapons to defend themselves. Despite this, Japan found a clever workaround. They built two helicopter carriers that were as big as regular aircraft carriers, bigger than Italy's. For years, people wondered if these were just aircraft carriers in disguise. Now there is no more guessing. With China becoming more aggressive, Japan has officially turned these ships into proper aircraft carriers. They are called the Izumo class and are Japan's first aircraft carriers in over 70 years. The ships Izumo and Kaga joined Japan's navy in 2015 and 2017. Each weighs 27,000 tons and can carry 28 helicopters. But what makes them special is their design. These ships were built to be easily converted into full aircraft carriers. They already have most of what they need. The rest can be added quickly when required. So while Japan calls them helicopter carriers, they are aircraft carriers in waiting. Let's explain what the debate is all about. To get the full picture, we need a clear picture of what a helicopter carrier is and why it matters so much to any country with one. A helicopter carrier is a special type of aircraft carrier that is built mainly for helicopters. It has a big flat deck for aircraft to land and take off. This deck can run the whole length of the ship, like on the Royal Navy's Ocean, or it might only cover part of the ship, usually the back end, like on the Soviet Navy's Moskva class or the Chinese Navy's Type 0811A. Most helicopter carriers also have an indoor hangar deck below, where they can store and fix their helicopters. These days, it is tricky to say what counts as a pure helicopter carrier. Things got more complicated when planes like the Harrier and F-35 came along. These can take off and land vertically. Take the United States Navy's Wasp-class ships. They carry 6 to 8 Harriers plus more than 20 helicopters. So really, only the smaller ships that can't handle these special planes, or older ships from before the Harrier existed, are truly helicopter carriers. Many modern ships that can work with these vertical takeoff planes are called light aircraft carriers instead. Some ships, like the Wasp class, can also move troops like Marines and get them to shore, which is why they're called landing helicopter docks. On the other hand, a full-blown aircraft carrier is a warship that acts as a floating airport, with a long flat deck and storage areas below for aircraft. It lets naval forces use aircraft thousands of miles from home without needing land-based airports. Aircraft carriers have come a long way since they first appeared as wooden ships carrying single observation balloons in the 1900s. They are massive nuclear-powered vessels that can carry anywhere from 40 to 60 different aircraft, from fighter jets and attack planes to helicopters and early warning aircraft. Now back to Japan. The Kaga is a powerful ship in Japan's Navy. Japan officially calls it a multi-purpose operation destroyer. It is the second ship of its kind, following its sister ship, the Izumo. The Kaga is from an old Japanese province, now part of Ishikawa Prefecture. Construction began in October 2013 at Japan Marine United's Yokohama shipyard. The ship was launched in August 2015 and entered service in March 2017. The Kaga's flight deck is built for action, with 5 spots where helicopters can land or take off at the same time. This makes it similar to American ships, such as the Wasp and America class. Experts noticed something interesting about Japan's new helicopter destroyers in 2010. It looked like they were designed to handle more than just helicopters. People started speculating that the ships could launch fighter jets like the V-22 Osprey and the F-35 Lightning II. And guess what? They were right. Japan announced plans to upgrade the Kaga and Izumo to carry the F-35B, a special version that can take off and land vertically. They started fixing them up in 2022, and it would take about 5 years to get each one ready. The planned changes to Kaga will be more expensive and extensive than the work done on its sister ship. The modifications include reshaping the front of the vessel. The initial phase of construction finished in the early 2024. In 2019, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe approved a defense budget of 26.2 trillion yen, or $238.72 billion to be distributed over 5 years. This money would cover upgrading Izumo and Kaga and buying 147 F-35A and F-35B stealth fighters. The Mainichi Shimbun newspaper reported that Japan's Air Self-Defense Force plans to get 42 F-35B aircraft. They will bring in 18 by 2023, 6 in 2024, and 2 in 2025, and the first group will form one squadron of about 20 planes. Defense Minister Nobuo Kishi picked Nutabaru Air Base in Miyazaki Prefecture, Kyushu, to host these F-35Bs. The base sits close to the Southwest Islands, including Okinawa, and near the Kure Base in Hiroshima Prefecture, where Kaga is stationed. The Kaga stretches 814 feet, or 248 meters, and weighs 27,000 tons. That makes her the biggest ship in Japan's maritime self-defense force. She is a light carrier similar to Italy's Cavour and about the same size as many countries' amphibious ships, but she is much smaller than supercarriers. Take the USS George H.W. Bush, which is 1,092 feet, or 333 meters, long and weighs over 100,000 tons and protects itself with 2 phalanx and 2 CRAM close-in weapon systems. In 2018, Kaga sailed through the South China Sea and Indian Ocean as part of the Indo-Southeast Asia deployment exercise. The trip showed Japan's presence in these key waters, with stops in the Philippines, Singapore, Indonesia, India, and Sri Lanka. Donald Trump visited Japan, and during his visit, he visited Kaga in Yokosuka. While there, he gave a speech saying that many United States allies were not spending enough on their militaries while taking advantage of America's big defense budget. He praised Japan for buying American equipment and wished them well as they entered the Reiwa era. Let us look at Kaga's sister ship, Izumo. Work started on the first Izumo-class ship in 2011 at IHI Marine United's Yokohama yard. The fiscal 2010 budget set aside 113.9 billion yen, about 1.5 billion United States dollars, for this project. These ships were meant to take over from the Shirane-class destroyers, which were set to retire in 2014. The ship can accommodate up to 28 aircraft, though this drops to 14 when carrying larger aircraft. For now, they plan to equip it with 7 anti-submarine warfare helicopters and 2 search and rescue helicopters. The ship can also transport 400 troops and 53.5-ton trucks or similar equipment. The flight deck features 5 spots where helicopters can land and take off simultaneously. In 2010, defense analysts at Forecast International noticed something peculiar about the Izumo-class helicopter destroyers. Certain design features hinted that these ships might be capable of handling more than just helicopters. Despite this speculation, the Ministry of Defense and the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force remained tight-lipped, never acknowledging the possibility of deploying fixed-wing aircraft on these vessels. Adding to the mystery, The Izumo class lacks the typical features of launching conventional fighter jets, such as a ski jump ramp or a catapult system. This suggests that if these ships were indeed to operate fixed-wing aircraft, they would be limited to short takeoff, vertical landing aircraft. Japan bought the Lightning II fighter jet's regular takeoff and landing version, and they have also considered getting the F-35B model, which can take off in short distances and land vertically. This version could work on a modified Izumo-class ship. In December 2018, Japan announced plans to update their defense rules and buy 42 F-35B fighters to use on Izumo. The Izumo-class ship serves as a multi-purpose operation destroyer. When empty, it weighs 19,950 metric tons, or 19,630 long tons. When carrying a full load, the ship's weight increases to 26,000 metric tons, which equals 26,000 long tons. The Izumo measures 248 meters long, or 813 feet and 8 inches. Its beam spans 38 meters, which is 124 feet and 8 inches across. The ship stands 23.5 meters tall, equal to 77 feet and 1 inch. It has a draft of 7.5 meters, or 24 feet and 7 inches. It uses a COGAG system with 2 shafts and 4 GE/IHILM 2500 IEC gas turbines for power. The ship can move faster than 30 knots, about 35 miles or 56 kilometers per hour. The ship can hold 970 people, including crew and troops. It uses the OYQ-12 combat direction system and the FCS-3 fire control system for tracking and combat. It's equipped with an OPS-50 ASA radar, OPS-28 surface search radar, and an OQQ-23 boost sonar for underwater detection. The ship has several electronic warfare systems to defend against threats. These include the NOLQ-3D1 electronic warfare suite, Mark 36 SRBOC countermeasures, anti-torpedo mobile decoys, and floating acoustic jammers that can confuse enemy sensors. For weapons, the ship carries 2 Phalanx close-in weapon systems and 2 CRAM close-in weapon systems. In terms of aircraft, it typically operates with 7 anti-submarine warfare helicopters and 2 search and rescue helicopters. At most, the ship can handle 28 jets in total. After joining the fleet at Yokosuka Port in Japan in March 2015, Izumo quickly got to work. By August of that same year, it teamed up with the Coast Guard ship Izu for a major emergency drill in Tokyo. During this practice run, both ships served as medical centers where they could receive and sort injured people. A big moment for Japan's military was in May 2017, when the massive Izumo headed out on a mission that would make headlines, protecting an American supply ship near Japanese waters. This was not just any routine patrol. The United States vessel, Richard E. Byrd, was part of a bigger operation keeping tabs on North Korean missiles. What made this so special? It was the first time Japan had ever guarded a United States ship since they changed their military laws in 2016. However, this did not sit well with everyone back home. When the Izumo left port in Yokosuka, protesters showed up. They were worried that this kind of mission, especially using such a big warship, went against Japan's long-standing policy of having a military only for defense. This was more than just ships moving around in the ocean. Japan took a bigger step onto the world stage, showing they were ready to work more closely with their American allies. This was significant for a country that had stayed away from this kind of military teamwork for so long. In September 2021, Izumo trained with the British aircraft carrier Queen Elizabeth and other ships in the Pacific. By early October that year, Izumo hit another milestone when the United States Marine Corps F-35B fighters landed on its deck for the first time. Later, on May 31, 2022, Japan's Navy announced that Izumo would join RIMPAC 2022 along with 2 other Japanese ships, the destroyer Takanami and destroyer Kirasami. As of January 2025, about 50 aircraft carriers actively serve in 15 different navies worldwide. The United States operates 11 large nuclear-powered fleet carriers that use catapults to launch their planes. Each carries about 80 fighter jets, and their combined deck space is more than double that of all other nations. China, Britain and India each run 2 aircraft carriers with sloped decks for takeoff. China is also building a third carrier that will use catapults like the American ones. France and Russia have one carrier that can handle between 30 and 60 fighter jets. Italy has 2 smaller carriers that work with vertical takeoff planes, while Spain and Turkey each have one ship that can carry both aircraft and troops. What makes aircraft carriers so special? Speed and size are the 2 big things that matter most for these massive warships. Think about it like this. An aircraft carrier needs to move fast. We are talking about speeds over 35 miles per hour. That is pretty impressive for something as big as a floating city. This speed does 2 important things. It lets the ship get where it needs to go quickly and helps planes take off better. See, when the vessel moves fast, it creates more wind over the deck, which gives planes an extra boost when taking off. This is a big deal for ships like Japan's Kaga and Izumo. The faster they can go, the easier for those jets to take off from their decks. Speaking of decks, that brings us to size. Aircraft carriers are huge, and they need to be. Look at ships like the American Ronald Reagan or France's Charles de Gaulle. All that space is needed for planes to take off, land, and park. The Japanese ships Kaga and Izumo are particularly interesting because they show how carriers can change over time. They started out carrying just helicopters, but now they are being upgraded to handle fighter jets, which sends a clear message to China and the rest of the world. Why is this such a huge deal for China? First and foremost, Japan protecting United States ships in China's backyard sent a crystal clear signal. China sees itself as the major power in Asia, and they are particularly sensitive about aircraft carriers. So naturally, when Japan started using the Izumo this way, it was like waving a red flag in front of them. Moreover, China had always used Japan's wartime past to criticize any military moves Japan made. As a result, they were especially unhappy seeing Japan's biggest warship working alongside American forces. From China's perspective, Japan was steadily breaking away from its peaceful, defense-only policy. Perhaps even more concerning for China was what this newfound teamwork represented. After all, Japan and America working together this closely made China increasingly nervous. Additionally, it demonstrated that Japan was prepared to take on a stronger military role in the region, which could directly challenge China's growing influence. Simply put, China was already dealing with American ships in the region. On top of that, they had to worry about Japanese ships protecting American ships too. Understandably, this created twice the concern for their military planners. In the end, this situation pushed China to dramatically speed up its naval buildup, especially its aircraft carrier program. They looked at what was happening and concluded they needed to match this show of force. That's precisely why China has 3 carriers, even more currently in the planning stages. Here is where things stand now. The Pacific has become a high-stakes chess game. But this is not just about warships. It is about a changing Asia, where old rivals are picking sides and building alliances. Japan, once committed to staying out of military matters, now stands shoulder to shoulder with America. And China, watching all of this unfold, pushes harder to become the region's top power. What started with Japan's clever workaround of calling aircraft carriers helicopter carriers has turned into something much bigger. It has shaped how countries built their navies, chose their allies, and showed their strength in the Pacific. As these nations eye each other across the waves, one thing's clear. The balance of power in Asia is not just shifting, it has already changed. Thanks for watching. While you are still here, click on the link on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there.